this video I'm going to show you some aspects of using SDL Trados 2017, although nearly all of them also apply to 2019. Now, this first checklist contains a few things that I want to show you later on when we look at translating between Trados and MemoQ. But let's see, I can translate a single document. Well, let's open up SDL Trados Studio 2017 and let's have a look at that. By the way, make a project, we just saw how to do that, so there is another video just for that. Now, what we saw in the video on making a project is we come to projects and we click on new project. We learned with MemoQ that we have to make a project to translate. We can actually, in Trados, go to the welcome screen, and here it says drag files for translation or browse your computer. So let's do that. Let's browse the computer. Okay, where would it be? I have to just golden rule, make your menu boxes as large as possible. Teaching. So teaching. Informatica Avanzada, e-learning. This is in 1819. Right. So let me open up, for example, this file to translate. Good morning, first text. When I open it up, the default is to ask me, do I want to translate this by creating a new project, or do I want to translate as a single document? If I click on the New Project button, we will start the stages that we've learned about making a project. So what happens when we click on Translate as single document? Well, when we do that, the default is to open up this window where we have to specify the languages. Remember, we go up for the United Kingdom, we're going to need Portugal, we have to go, slide down until we get the P's. Alright, so we specify the languages, and it would be good to have a translation memory. Now, we did make one in a previous project, so let's use that. Notice, if we do nothing, what we have done is we're opening up a document to translate, we say the languages, we get a translation memory, and now we click on OK. And Trados will open this file to translate directly into the editor. Notice if I try and put something into the term base, I can't. The reason is I didn't make a term base, or rather I didn't select or make a term base. Now, if you notice, the name of this file is goodmorningfirsttext.doc. When you open a file as a document, it does not make the bilingual file. So the first thing you have to do is click on Save As, and then it will make you the bilingual file. Let me just change this, as I already did this in another project. I would go through and translate, and we'll look at the other steps later. So basically, this is how you can open a document in Trados to translate. You go to Welcome, you find a file by browsing, that one, and you can translate as a single document, so you can open it as a document. What can be interesting is if you browse and you select two files, now this is a little bit strange, translate as a single document. If you click on that, you will go through the process twice of creating two different translate as single document jobs, if you see what I mean. If you create a new project, they will just be added to the project. So this can be a little bit confusing. Now, if I come to my list of projects, if we open this up a little bit, what we can see is that when we made a project, it's a studio project. When you translate a single file, it's called a single file project. So it's still a project, it just is a single file project. Don't worry too much about that if that's a little bit confusing. But to open a single document, go to Welcome, browse your computer, open the file, and you just select the translate, you just change the languages for the source and target, select the translation memory, make or select the translation memory. OK. And then just click on OK. Then you would save the file as a bilingual file. Let's have a look at the next one. Make a project, I think we've done. Make a translation memory. We may, or make a term base. We made these as part of the project. Another way you can make a translation memory is to come down to this view that says Translation Memories, and you're in the Translation Memories view, and you can click on New Translation Memory. You can make one here. Another way you can make a translation memory is, imagine you're translating this project, you're translating one of the texts in this project. You can actually come, so this is a project, and the project has settings. Here it says project settings. So you can come up here, and here, if we go down to all language pairs translation memory, let's try and make that a bit bigger perhaps. So you see here in the project settings you have various things. You have language pairs, all language pairs, translation memory. And you can see this is the translation memory we selected. We could make another one here if we wanted to. So the second place we can make a translation memory is by clicking on project settings. Project settings is also available in the projects view. You could just come here and do it. If you wanted to make a term base, you can come to the project settings and you can see term bases here. You just come down and select term bases and you can click on create. There's no separate tab for translation memories, I beg your pardon, term bases. However, you can click on Welcome and click on Terminology Management, and then you run the separate program called Multiterm, and running this, you can click on Create Term Base here, or you can also click on File New if you want. Although there's not much point if we can see it here. Slightly different, you have to give the name of the term base first. By the way, all file names in Trados are called SDL something. Translation memories are SDL TM, term bases are SDL TB, and so on. Here you just give the name, and then you would still go through the process of that we saw before of making a term base. So I hope that's okay. I'm just going to close that. That is making a term base. Right-click a file to translate in Trados. Now, if we go to File Explorer or Windows Explorer, if you have an old version of Windows, here are some texts. Now, the two ways we've learned of how to translate that in Trados is to either make a project and add that as a file that we want to translate, or go to the welcome screen, browse computer and click on this, and then we choose either to translate it as a project or as a single document. If we're just in File Explorer and click on the right button, we have an option here to translate in Studio. Notice we also have an option to translate in MemberQ. Let's click on, let me just do this again. So I'm in File Explorer. Let's click on, actually that will be quite large, so let me go back to using one of these again. Let me right click on this, translate in Studio. If I do that, what it does is just open up Studio again. Because I've got 2019 also on this machine, it opens up 2019. Anyway, the process is essentially the same, whether it's 2017 or 19. Studio will open up. And remember the window that opened up for us to select the languages and translation memory. Basically, we go straight to this screen and then we can say OK, and the file is loaded. So it's very, very similar to all right, let me just close this. We saw that we can go to Welcome, browse the computer, select the file, and then we say translate as a single document. Then we come to here. If we start here, we can right click and translate in Studio, and we go immediately to this option. The only problem is we open a second instance of Trados. So that's what it means to translate a single file in Trados. Or rather, I beg your pardon, to right click. So, right click a file to translate in Trados. Single file translation. The other one, in 17, there is an option to decide whether you translate it as a single document or a project. Let's have a look at the other things here. Alter the appearance of the edit view to make more space for the translation. Let me just close one of these, which is the 19. Okay, that's the 19, so I'll close that. Just the 17, I think it is. It's easy to get a bit confused. Yes, this is a 17. Right, let's see if have we got anything open? Yeah. Now, this is the default view for Trados. One very, very useful thing to know is to go to View and notice this button, Reset Window Layout. I'll come back to this in a couple of minutes, but sometimes we alter how Trados looks and we get into a bit of a mess, and then we can click on Reset Window Layout. It's also, I think, in 17 can be a way of crashing the program if we go too wild. So let's see if that happens. Now, in any software, we have parts of the screen where we do the work. In this case, translate. So here, this is where we're actually doing the translation. This is where we get help from results, and we have various places and various commands. It's a bit similar if you were using Photoshop or using Premiere to edit videos. You'd have the actual area where you worked on the videos, and it would be surrounded by various features you can access. So, I'm not quite sure what percentage of the screen you think this is. Very often when we translate, we want to give more area to the translation. So here, we can make this much smaller. Notice we get little icons. When we're starting to use Trados, we don't really know what the icons are. We may have to come here to remind ourselves where the Files menu is. But after a while, we start to know that, oh, that's the Files view. So that's one little bit of space we can get. You can also double click here. If I click Home twice, I close the ribbon. This is exactly the same as, for example, in Office. If you notice, the ribbon is closed here. If I double click, I open this up again. So Trados and MemoQ often take things from more standard programs like Office. So I've gained that space. Also, can you see, if I move up here, actually can't see it very well on this particular screen layout, but my cursor changes there and I get a line. I can move that down, or I can actually move it up. If I'm not getting many hits, I can make the area where I get hits or help very small. Now if you notice, just from doing that, the area of the translation on the screen has considerably changed. The other thing I can do here is I can get a preview. Some of the windows in Trados are only shown when you decide to go over. For example, when I try this, if you're following along, just come over to the preview and you'll see it opens up. So I'm going to click here to generate the initial preview. And here we can see the file. I can also, if I want, make this, I can try and make this wider. I can also get the target, or I can choose the source. So I can either see the original or I can see the translation. When I click out of that here, this window disappears. refresh it. Let me just, now, if I find out I want to go back to where I was, I can click on View and click on Reset Window Layout. Yes, please. And what this will do is take the screen back to how it was, except it doesn't alter the editor. You still have to click here, and you still have to click Home to get that back. I'm sorry, that's something else on my machine. We can also take these more radically. You can actually take a window and move it somewhere. So there's various things you can do, and you can actually end up with quite a bit of a mess, really. You can actually, what I did there was I clicked on this eye symbol and I've locked it. Let me just, when you start to get a mess like this, it starts to be useful to be able to reset it. Also, if you lose a window for some reason, you can get it back by doing that. Let me just show you an HTML file, but perhaps this is more interesting. So here we've got this. If I click on Preview, this might take a little bit of time to generate. Oh well, maybe not. So this is the target. Now, another thing that's on the list is oh, and by the way, this is what we were doing just now, alter the appearance of the editor view to arrange more space for the translation, which is actually very similar. In fact, I think I've got that twice by mistake. Okay, let's go back to the view. If I click on Preview, I think if I click here, I can actually fix this. Nope, there's a way of fixing this. Because when you're translating a web page, if I click here, for example, I go to the segment that I've clicked on. So you can use the preview as a way of seeing what you're translating and use that to move around the document. So if I want to translate that, not logged in, I click there, and not logged in is here. So that can be very useful as well. Next. Translating segments, yeah. Using preview to move around the files. What this basically means is you can translate and right-click, use concordance, use add terms, do basic translation functions as you go through the translation job. The preview is what I just showed you to move around. Deal with tags. Now, I dealt with tags in the previous video, but I'll just very quickly show you again. Let's try and find a tag. So, just to very quickly, how do we deal with tags? We've got tags here, these wedges. One way is just to copy source to target, Control-Ins. And you just can translate this. Another way you can deal with tags is by pressing Control, Control Virgula. Then you'll get a list of everything you can put, and you come to, let's see, this is after categories before the 2 dots. After categories before the 2 dots, before the colon, control, comma, there you go. This is a bit confusing, isn't it? It's going to disappear now. All it really is trying to do is say, hey, don't forget your friend. Now, if I was to delete this, you get this ghost tag, and what the program is really saying is, I'm not going away unless you delete my friend, because we hang out together. Oh, you deleted my friend, I'm going away as well. Which is why, okay, I'm going to put this, but you know, I have to press enter, I can't just click on it now. But you know, don't forget I've got a friend. Okay, I won't forget you've got a friend, control comma, press enter, there you go. So there how you can deal with tags. Exporting for bilingual review, editing in Word and updating. Let me go to this because it's a bit... which one's translated? Okay, let's see. Oops, that's not very good, is it? Now, let's imagine I've finished this. I save it. In fact, have I made the... I can't remember if I've done that, but I have, but never mind. Right, how can you make the bilingual file, how can you send that to be reviewed? Well, we'll learn later on that we can just make the SDLXLIF file and then send that to somebody. If we're doing this for somebody who has not got Trados or MemoQ, and they're going to do it in Word, I find because we're going to send it off for review, review, let's click on review, and then in review you'll see there's an option, export for bilingual review. So click on it. Remember, when you do a batch task, this is a batch task, the first screen only shows you what you've chosen. It's a kind of a check, are you sure this is what you want? And this is what it will do. So let's click on next. So it just wants to check where I want to put it. I don't need to change anything else. I can just click on finish. This is quite useful. It says, would you like to open the folder containing your exported document? So let's say yes. Strictly speaking, it doesn't open the folder, it shows us the folder. And now we can open up this document, which is an RTF file, which we've seen in MemoQ, and we can edit this. The rule is we shouldn't change anything here. So, I don't know, let's just change that. And change that. Now we'll save this. So we've simulated doing a revision of this file. Now let's close it. Let's go back to Trados. Now we just exported it for bilingual review. Now we want to get it back. We want to update this file from the bilingual review that we just did. By the way, make sure you choose the first one. The second is something different called retrofit, which is the equivalent to monolingual review in MemoQ. So just choose the first one, update from bilingual review. Again, this is a batch task, so the very first screen that we will see is saying, hey, you've chosen this. Okay, thank you, let's go on. and it's saying, hey, this is the original file. Where's the review document? You can either right-click here, or you can click on Add. And, oh well, we can go to the folder where we put that. Let me just see. And what's happened is we've made a project folder, because when you do a batch task, it actually adds a subfolder to a project folder. So at the risk of confusing you, we had a single text, and now because we reviewed it, in a subfolder we put the external review. We have to select the folder. Okay. Actually, I did that by selecting the folder rather than selecting the... let me just remove it. Another way we can do this is right-click, add specific review document, and basically we can just select the file. Next. Finish. Do we want to reopen the file? Yes, please, so then we'll update it. So now we've got the reviewed document, and if you notice we've got these as track changes, registrar alterações. So the best thing is you go up to review, and what you'll see here are the track change, which, just for information, is exactly the same as track changes in review in Word, well, accept, reject, moving around the changes. So the idea has been taken from there. So if we come up to the top here and we click on the next change to consider, so rather than put the cursor somewhere where we might get confused, I put the cursor at the beginning of the document and I go to review and I say next. It comes here and it wants to know, do we accept or reject this? Notice we can accept all the changes in one go if we're very confident in our reviewer. We'll just do one here. Notice we still have to accept this is exactly the same as Word. Yes, I agree there has to be a change. Yes, I agree that is the change I want. Go to the next one. I can accept, and I can accept. If I click on next, it will say we don't have anything else to do. So that's how you can, and then I would just save the document to make sure I've got my work. So that is how you do bilingual review in Trados. I think I showed this already, but when you want the final translation, when you finish, the easy way to do it is just to click to File and click on Save Target As. Then you could change the name, go to wherever you want to put the translation, and you can save it. Right, we already did it in the previous video. Or, if this is part of a project, when you've finished all the project, you can go to the project. I think it's going to ask me to close that, but never mind. I can run a batch task which says finalize. Finalize will generate the target translations, so all the final translations. Remember, this is a project and we could have 2, 3, 4, 20, 50 translations. and it will update the translation memories. When you do that, it puts the translations in a subfolder, but it doesn't change the name of the translations. It's very easy to get a bit lost in Trados as to where a project is, where a file is, what the translation is. So if you just, when you've finished a document and you're ready to save it, I find it much easier to go to File, Save Target As. Then you can, first of all, you can alter the name, and then you can put it wherever you want to put it. Okay, let's have a look. QA features. Well, I quite like this because by the time we finish, we've done nearly all the buttons in the review ribbon. We looked at this, we haven't looked at comments, we've looked at track changes, and now here, F7 is to check spelling, or review, click here, and the equivalent of QA in, well, it is also called quality assurance, but you actually do it by clicking on verify, which is F8. And what it's going to tell me is lots and lots of segments that have not been translated. Notice it uses this window, and this window has now become a message window. If I click, for example, on this one, it will take me to the segment where the error is. So that's how you QA check. And it's something I wish that MemoQ would do. There is no shortcut key for QA check in MemoQ, and I very much like F8 because F7, F8, you get into the habit of doing F7 and doing F8. So that's how you can do a QA check in Trados. Project settings, file options. Okay, we're nearly finished, by the way. This translation is part of a project. Let me just go back to the home view. If I want to change the settings for a project, I click here, and now I'm in the project settings for this project. So I can come up to here, for example, project, for example, and I can make some changes here. Or I can come up here and make a change, which is a bit confusing. There's all kinds of changes I can make, and I'm just making them to this project. Let me just see if I've got MemoQ open. No, I haven't, but I'll just... the equivalent of that is when you're translating in MemoQ, and you come to the settings here, this is your project, one particular project. This is a project. If I click on the settings, then I can make changes to the settings for this project. Okay? If I come up here and choose options, I can make changes to resources that's more general. So if I just want to make changes for the particular project I'm working on, I do it here. Now, in the same way in Trados, oops, wrong button, I find it very easy to confuse those. If I come here and click on project settings, I can make changes that only apply to this specific project. However, if I want to make changes that will affect all the projects in the future, I click on File, Options. Now I have various things I can change. For example, I can choose colors, I don't know, I can change how I spell check, various things I can change. I could even change the target language if I wanted to. Fonts, I can change what size the font, what font sizes a translation will open in. So there are many, all those changes done in File Options will affect all the projects which follow. If you do it in Project Settings, it just applies to the particular project. Right, I think we're near the end. Right, this one we're going to deal with in a separate video. The last thing is making TMX files and exporting them. So, if I want to make a TMX file of my translation memory, the easiest way is to come up to Project Settings. Note, in all language pairs translation memories, here I've got the translation memory I'm using. Here, there's an option, Export. If I click on Export, so let me just do that again because I did it a bit quickly. If I come up here to Project Settings, if I click on, if I had several TMs, I would just select the one I wanted. If I come up here and click on Export, Export to, Browse, I could type, now I will make the TMX file. So that's how you export for TMX in MemoQ. While we're here, import does the opposite. You can add, you can find a TMX file. For example, you've made it from MemoQ, and you can just add this. Let's just choose the defaults. Then you have added it to your translation memory. And the final thing, just while we've got the video open, if I come to my translation memories in MemoQ, and then let's click on that one, and if I import a TMX, notice this I just exported from Trados. I can open this up. MemoQ is clever enough to realize that this was made in SDL, Trados or something like that, and the source language, and I can click there, and I've imported the TMX file. Okay, that was a lot of things about Trados. What I'll do below is I'll put an index in the notes to help you. If you're just interested in one or two of these things, I'll make an index for you. Thank you very much for watching. This was quite a long video. See you in the next video.